The massive space station floated in the darkness between stars. Kepler Station was bigger than any city on Earth, its metal halls stretching for miles in every direction. Ships from across the galaxy docked at its many ports, bringing delegates from worlds that humans had only dreamed about. President Han Woo-jin stood at the observation deck, watching alien vessels arrive. Some ships looked like crystal butterflies, others like floating mountains of black metal. His reflection stared back at him from the thick glass, a man in his 50s with kind eyes and graying hair. He had spent his whole life preparing for this moment. "Sir, the opening ceremony begins in 1 hour," said Park So-young, his chief advisor. She was younger than him, smart and careful with words. Her tablet showed the schedule for the next 3 days of meetings. Admiral Kim Dae-ho joined them at the window. He was a tall man with scars on his hands from his early days as a fighter pilot. "The alien ships have impressive weapons," he said quietly. "Much more advanced than ours." Han nodded but smiled. "We're not here to fight, Admiral. We're here to join the galactic community as equals." The 3 humans made their way through the station's corridors. Alien beings walked past them, some tall and graceful with blue skin, others short and covered in scales. A few stopped to stare at the humans with curiosity or disgust. The main assembly hall was enormous. Thousands of seats faced a central platform where speakers would address the gathering. The humans took their assigned places in a section marked for new species. It was far from the important seats where the major powers sat. The Velati Empire occupied the best seats. They looked like tall, pale humans but moved with an arrogance that made Han uncomfortable. Their ambassador, a woman with silver hair and cold eyes, glanced at the human section with clear disdain. Near them sat the representatives of the Kresh Collective. These beings shared a hive mind and spoke in perfect unison. Their gray insect-like faces showed no emotion as they watched the proceedings. The Corvan Republic delegates wore military uniforms covered in medals. They were shorter than humans, but broader, with thick arms and aggressive postures. Their leader, General Thax, had personally killed dozens of enemies in border wars. A chime rang through the hall, and the ceremony began. One by one, the major powers gave speeches about trade, territory, and the future of galactic civilization. They spoke of the humans as if they were children who might someday grow up to be useful. Finally, it was Han's turn to speak. He walked to the platform with steady steps, his hands clasped behind his back. The hall fell silent as he reached the microphone. "Honored delegates," he began, his voice carrying clearly through the vast space. "I come before you not as a conqueror or a beggar, but as a representative of humanity's hope for peace." Some aliens in the audience shifted uncomfortably. Others looked bored. "We know we are newcomers to your ancient civilization," Han continued. "We know our technology seems primitive compared to yours, but we offer something valuable, our determination to work together for the good of all." He spoke about Earth's history, about how humans had learned to overcome their differences. He talked about art, music, and literature that could enrich galactic culture. He described scientific discoveries that might benefit everyone. "We ask only for the chance to prove ourselves worthy partners in building a better future for all sentient beings," he concluded. The applause was polite, but weak. Han returned to his seat, knowing his words had fallen on deaf ears. During the break, the Velati ambassador approached the human section. "Such pretty words," she said with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Your species has such charming naivety. Perhaps in a few centuries, when you've learned your place, we might find some small role for you in galactic affairs." General Thax of the Corvan Republic was less subtle. "Humans think they deserve respect because they've stopped killing each other for a few decades," he said loudly enough for everyone to hear. "We've been watching your world. You're still savages pretending to be civilized." Admiral Kim's jaw tightened, but Han placed a hand on his arm. "We're here to make friends, not enemies," the president whispered. The day's sessions continued with discussions about trade routes and territorial boundaries. The humans were allowed to observe but not participate in the real decisions. They were reminded again and again that they were the newest and least important species in the room. That evening, Han attended a formal dinner in the station's grand ballroom. The alien delegates gathered in small groups, talking and laughing. While human servants brought them exotic foods, the humans sat at a table by themselves, ignored by everyone else. "This isn't what I expected," Park So-young said quietly. "They treat us like we're not even here." "Give it time," Han replied. "Fear and suspicion can be overcome with patience and goodwill." Admiral Kim said nothing, but his eyes followed the alien delegates as they moved through the room. His military training made him notice things others missed: the way the Corvin guards positioned themselves, the hidden weapons some delegates carried, the careful way certain groups avoided talking to each other. As the evening ended, Han retired to his quarters in the human section of the station. His rooms were comfortable but simple, nothing like the luxury suites given to the major powers. He didn't mind. Tomorrow would bring new opportunities to build bridges between species. He was reviewing his notes for the next day's sessions when the lights went out. The attack came fast and silent. The door to his quarters opened without a sound and a figure in dark armor slipped inside. Han looked up from his desk just as the assassin raised a plasma weapon. "Why?" Han asked, his voice steady despite the fear in his chest. The assassin's voice was mechanical, filtered through a translator. "Because your species needs to learn its place." The weapon fired once, filling the room with blue light. President Han Woo-jin, the man who had dreamed of peace between the stars, died instantly. The assassin activated a small device that broadcast the killing across the Galactic Communication Network. Within minutes, every world in known space would see the message. Humanity's leader was dead, and any species that didn't know its place would suffer the same fate. But the assassin had made one critical mistake. He had assumed that killing Earth's leader would make humanity submit. He was about to learn how wrong he was. The emergency session of Earth's Defense Council met in the underground bunker beneath Seoul. The room was filled with the most powerful people on the planet, but their faces showed only grief and rage. The holographic display at the center of the table showed the same image over and over. President Han Woo-jin's final moments, broadcast to every corner of the galaxy. Lee Hyun-soo sat at the head of the table where Han should have been. As defense minister, he was now Earth's leader, until new elections could be held. But everyone in the room knew there would be no elections until this matter was settled. Lee's hands were clenched into fists as he watched his best friend die again and again. "Turn it off," he said quietly. The display went dark, but the image remained burned into everyone's memory. Admiral Kim Dae-ho stood at attention near the wall. He had returned from Kepler Station 12 hours ago, his face grim and his uniform wrinkled from the emergency flight home. "The assassination was planned," he reported. "Security footage shows the killer was Corvin, but he had help from station personnel. This wasn't the act of one species." Park So-young, her eyes red from crying, placed a tablet on the table. "Intelligence reports confirm it. At least 3 major alien powers knew about the plan. They wanted to send a message to the entire galaxy about what happens to upstart species." Around the table, Earth's leaders absorbed this information. General Yang Tae-woo of the army spoke first. "They killed him because they thought we'd submit. They thought we'd beg for mercy and accept whatever scraps they offered us." "They were wrong," Lee said, his voice like ice. Dr. Choi Min-ki, head of Earth's Advanced Weapons Division, activated his own display. Technical blueprints filled the air above the table, designs for weapons that had never been built, technologies that had been kept secret for decades. President Han ordered these projects shelved when he chose diplomacy, Choi explained. He believed in peace, but we continued research in case. He gestured at the empty chair where Han should have been sitting. The weapons were beyond anything the aliens had seen from humanity. Antimatter warheads that could crack planets, quantum torpedoes that ignored shields and armor, kinetic bombardment platforms that could strike targets from orbit with the force of nuclear weapons. Most devastating of all was Project Solar Lance, a network of orbital weapons platforms that could focus stellar energy into precise beams capable of melting through any known material. How long to deploy these systems? Lee asked. The first weapons can be online within a week, Choi replied. Full deployment will take 3 months. Commander Yoon Ji-hai of Earth's Special Forces stepped forward. She was small but deadly, trained in every form of combat known to humanity. Sir, my teams are ready for immediate deployment. Give us targets. Lee stood and walked to the massive wall display that showed Earth's position in the galaxy. Red dots marked alien worlds, trade routes, and military bases. For years, human exploration ships had been mapping everything, cataloging defenses, recording patrol patterns. The aliens had thought humanity was just curious about their new neighbors. They had been gathering intelligence for war. Admiral Kim, what's the status of our fleet? Lee asked. Kim activated his own display. We have 300 ships officially listed as exploration and colony vessels. In reality, they're warships designed to look peaceful. Each one carries enough firepower to level a city. The room fell silent as everyone absorbed the implications. Earth had been preparing for war while talking about peace. President Han knew this day might come, Lee said quietly. He hoped it wouldn't, but he prepared for it anyway. The man they killed was no naive fool. He was a former general who understood that peace must be backed by strength. Engineer Seo Da-un brought up construction schedules on her tablet. We can convert our shipyards to military production immediately. The first Dreadnought-class vessels can launch within 6 months. Do it, Lee ordered. All of it. Every weapon, every ship, every soldier. We tried diplomacy, and they responded with murder. The room erupted in activity as orders were given and plans set in motion. But Lee held up his hand for silence. Before we begin, everyone needs to understand what we're doing. This isn't a police action or a limited response. This is war. Total war. We're going to teach the galaxy what happens when you murder Earth's leaders. Park So-young looked up from her tablet. The aliens will unite against us. Every species in the galaxy will see us as a threat. Good, Lee replied. Let them unite. Let them throw everything they have at us. We'll show them what humanity is really capable of. Admiral Kim smiled for the first time since returning from Kepler Station. Sir, what are our rules of engagement? Lee walked back to Han's empty chair and placed his hand on the headrest. There are no rules. They wanted to send a message by killing our president. We'll send a message by burning their worlds. Across Earth, the machinery of war began to move. Factories that had been producing civilian goods switched to military production. Shipyards that had been building exploration vessels started constructing warships. Universities that had been teaching peaceful sciences began training soldiers. The global communication network carried Lee's address to every human on Earth and in the colonies. His message was simple. They killed our leader because they thought we were weak. They were wrong. We are going to show the galaxy what humanity really is. Within hours, volunteers were lining up at recruitment centers. Retired soldiers came out of retirement. Scientists abandoned peaceful research to develop new weapons. Even children too young to fight began training for the day they could join the war effort. The aliens had made one fatal mistake. They had assumed that killing one human would make the rest submit. Instead, they had united humanity in a way nothing else could have. They had awakened Earth. In space, human ships that had been exploring peacefully began revealing their true nature. Weapon systems came online, shields activated. The vessels that alien patrols had dismissed as harmless research craft suddenly became deadly predators. The first alien ship to discover this was a Corvin patrol cruiser near the edge of human space. It had been shadowing a human vessel for weeks, gathering intelligence. When the human ship suddenly turned and opened fire, the Corvin captain had just enough time to send a distress signal before his ship was reduced to cosmic dust. The message reached Corvin High Command within hours. The humans were no longer hiding their weapons. By the end of the week, 3 more alien ships had been destroyed. Each time, the human vessels vanished back into space before reinforcements could arrive. The aliens began to realize they weren't hunting prey anymore. They were being hunted. On Earth, Lee Hun-soo stood in the same observation room where Han had planned his peaceful speeches. But instead of looking at diplomatic documents, Lee was studying target lists. "How long until the Solar Lance platforms are operational?" he asked Choi. 2 weeks, sir. And our strike teams? Commander Yoon's forces are already in position. They're waiting for your orders. Lee nodded. Then it's time to begin. Send the message to Admiral Kim. Operation Vengeance is authorized. This war for humanity's place in the galaxy was about to begin, and the aliens were about to learn why you never corner a species that has spent its entire evolution perfecting the art of killing its enemies. 3 weeks after President Han's assassination, the Corvin border world of Thakros received an unexpected visitor. The planet's orbital defense grid detected a single human ship approaching, one of their converted colony vessels that the Corvin military had dismissed as harmless. Admiral Kim Daeho stood on the bridge of the UES Determination, watching Thakros grow larger on the main screen. His ship looked like a peaceful exploration vessel from the outside, but appearances could be deadly. "All stations report ready," announced Captain An Tae-young from the weapons station. The young officer had volunteered for this mission knowing it would likely be his last. But after seeing his president murdered, death seemed like a small price to pay for vengeance. "Defense platforms are targeting us," reported the sensor officer. "They're demanding we identify ourselves and state our business." Kim smiled coldly. "Tell them we're here to deliver a message from Earth." The Corvin Defense Command was confused. One human ship against an entire planetary defense system seemed like suicide. General Vox, the station commander, opened a communication channel. "Human vessel, you are ordered to withdraw immediately. Any aggressive action will result in your destruction." Admiral Kim's face appeared on every screen in the Corvin Command Center. "General Vox, my name is Admiral Kim Dae-ho of the Terran Defense Fleet. 3 weeks ago, your people murdered our president during a peace conference. Today we begin our response." "You're insane," Vox snarled. "One ship against our entire fleet? Surrender now and we might let you live." "One ship?" Kim laughed. "General, you might want to check your sensors again." Vox turned to his sensor operator, who was staring at his screen in shock. "Sir, I'm detecting massive energy signatures appearing throughout the system. The human ship, it wasn't alone." Across the Thakros system, human vessels decloaked. They had been hiding behind asteroids using stealth technology the aliens had never seen. 50 ships materialized as if from nowhere, their weapon systems already charging. The Corvin defense fleet scrambled to respond, but they were caught completely off guard. Human weapons opened fire with devastating precision. Plasma cannons that had been hidden inside fake cargo bays erupted in brilliant streams of death. Missile launchers disguised as sensor arrays launched swarms of quantum torpedoes. Captain An targeted the main orbital platform with the Determination's primary weapon, a kinetic cannon that fired metal slugs at near light speed. The platform's shields, designed to stop energy weapons, were useless against solid projectiles moving at relativistic speeds. The slug punched through the station like it was made of paper. Secondary explosions rippled across the structure as power systems overloaded. Within minutes, the pride of Corvin border defense was the expanding cloud of debris. "Impossible," General Vox whispered as his fleet died around him. "Your weapons, they're more advanced than ours." "You've been watching us for decades," Kim replied, as human ships systematically destroyed every Corvin vessel in the system. "But you only saw what we wanted you to see. Did you really think a species that conquered its own world would build ships without teeth?" The battle lasted 6 hours. When it ended, the Corvin border fleet had ceased to exist. Not a single human ship had been lost, but Admiral Kim wasn't finished. "Captain An, signal the fleet. Begin orbital bombardment of military targets." From space, the human ships rained destruction on Thakros. The aliens had never seen warfare like this. Humans didn't just defeat their enemies, they made examples of them. Military bases vanished under precise kinetic strikes. Weapons factories became craters. The planet's ability to wage war was systematically erased. When the bombardment ended, Kim opened a channel to the surviving Corvin population. "People of Thakros, your military is gone. Your weapons are destroyed. But we are not monsters. Civilian targets have been spared. This is what happens when you murder our leaders. Tell your government. Earth remembers. News of the Thakros attack spread across the galaxy within hours. The impossible had happened. Humans had not only fought back but won decisively. The species that everyone had dismissed as primitive newcomers had revealed weapons and tactics that terrified the established powers. On Earth, engineer Seo Da-un worked frantically in the shipyards orbiting Luna. The first of humanity's new, dreadnought-class vessels was taking shape. Massive ships designed not for exploration but for war. The UES Never Again stretched for 2 kilometers, its hull bristling with weapons that could crack moons. "How long until she's ready?" asked Admiral Jang Hyo-seok, who would command the new vessel. 2 more weeks, Seo replied, wiping sweat from her forehead. "But sir, are we really going to name our warships things like Never Again and Remember Han?" Jang nodded grimly. "Every alien who sees those names will know exactly why we're coming for them." Meanwhile, on the edge of Corvin space, Commander Yoon Ji-hye's special forces prepared for their next mission. Her team of 40 soldiers crouched in the cargo bay of a stealth ship, checking their equipment one final time. "Remember," she told them, "we're not here to occupy territory. We're here to send a message. Get in, destroy the target, get out. Make them afraid to go to sleep at night." The target was a Corvin military command center on the world of Nexus, Prime. Intelligence suggested it was where the assassination order had originated. The facility was buried deep underground and protected by the best security the Corvins could provide. It wasn't nearly enough. Yoon's team infiltrated the planet using civilian transport, then made their way through the capital city to the command center. The Corvins had never faced human special forces before. They didn't understand that humans had spent centuries perfecting the art of asymmetric warfare. The attack came at midnight. Explosions ripped through the facility as Yoon's team struck simultaneously at 12 different points. Security forces rushed to respond, but the humans were already gone, melting back into the shadows like ghosts. By dawn, the command center was a smoking ruin. Every computer had been destroyed, every officer killed or captured. The humans had even left behind a message spray-painted on the walls: "Earth remembers Han Woo-jin." Across the galaxy, alien governments began to panic. The Valathi Empire called emergency sessions. The Kresh Collective analyzed human tactics with their hive mind. Even neutral species started reconsidering their positions. The humans weren't fighting like a civilized species. They were fighting like predators. On Kepler Station, where President Han had been murdered, the alien delegates watched news reports with growing horror. The humans had turned their peaceful exploration fleet into a weapon of war overnight. How was that possible? Ambassador Kex of the Valathi Empire studied tactical reports with shaking hands. "They've been planning this for years," she realized. "Those exploration ships, the trade missions, the cultural exchanges. It was all intelligence gathering." The truth was becoming clear. Humanity hadn't been naively seeking friendship. They had been studying their potential enemies, learning their weaknesses, preparing for the day when diplomacy failed. That day had come, and the galaxy was about to learn what humanity was really capable of. In space around Earth, more human fleets assembled. Ships that had been scattered across the galaxy for decades suddenly revealed their true purpose. The aliens had thought they were tracking human expansion. They had actually been watching humanity surround them. Admiral Kim received new orders from Earth as his fleet regrouped after the Thakros victory. The message was simple. Phase 2 authorized. Show them what happens when you corner a human. The sleeping giant was fully awake now, and it was very, very angry. 6 months after the assassination, General Oh Sung-min stood on the observation deck of Fortress Alpha, humanity's first military base in alien space. The facility had been built in the ruins of the Corvin fleet yards above Thakros, using the wreckage of alien ships as raw materials. Below him, human engineers worked around the clock to expand the base. Transport ships arrived daily, bringing supplies, weapons, and reinforcements from Earth. What had started as a raid had become a permanent footprint in enemy territory. "General, the perimeter sensors are detecting another Corvan patrol," reported Major Park Jae-won, his intelligence officer. "That's the third one this week." O nodded without looking up from his tactical display. "Let them watch. Let them see what we're building here. Fear is a weapon too." The Corvans weren't the only ones watching. Spy drones from a dozen different species observed the human expansion with growing alarm. The aliens had expected humanity to strike once and then retreat. Instead, humans were digging in for a long war. 3 star systems now flew Earth's flag. The Corvan border worlds had fallen one by one to human assault fleets that struck with precision and overwhelming force. Each victory brought new resources, new territory, and new strategic positions for further expansion. On Earth, Ambassador Kang Yu-jin sat in an empty office that had once housed the Department of Alien Relations. Her job had been to maintain diplomatic contact with other species. Now her only duty was intercepting enemy communications and delivering humanity's responses. The latest message had come from the Velothi Empire, proposing an alliance of all major powers against the human threat. Kang smiled as she composed Earth's reply: "To the Velothi Empire and their allies, you started this war when you murdered our president. We will end it when we decide we have made our point. Any species that joins your alliance will be considered an enemy of humanity. Choose wisely." The message was broadcast on all frequencies, ensuring every government in the galaxy would receive it. Humanity wasn't hiding their intentions anymore. Dr. Lim So-ra worked late in her laboratory aboard the research vessel Curiosity, studying captured alien technology. As Earth's lead xenobiologist, she had volunteered to examine the equipment salvaged from Corvan facilities. What she found disturbed her more than any weapon. "Director Lee needs to see this immediately," she told her assistant, holding up a datapad containing her analysis. The information reached Earth within hours. Director Lee Hyun-soo read the report in his underground command bunker, his face growing darker with each page. Park So-young watched him carefully. She had learned to recognize the signs of his anger. "They weren't just planning to keep us in line," Lee said finally. "They were planning to invade Earth." The captured data revealed the truth. The assassination had been the opening move in a larger plan called Operation Cleansing. Within 5 years, a coalition of alien powers intended to attack Earth directly, eliminate human leadership, and reduce humanity to a slave species. President Han hadn't been killed for his idealism. He had been murdered because the aliens feared what humanity might become if left free to develop. "Sir, this changes everything," Park said quietly. "They were never going to accept us as equals. They saw us as a future threat to be eliminated." Lee stood and walked to the war room's main display, which showed the current position of human forces throughout the galaxy. Red zones marked enemy territory, blue zones showed human-controlled space, and yellow zones indicated neutral worlds. "Send this information to every human commander," he ordered. "I want every soldier, every pilot, every citizen to understand what we're really fighting for. This isn't about revenge anymore. This is about survival." In the Velothi capital system, Ambassador Kex called an emergency meeting of the Galactic's Defense Coalition. Representatives from 12 major species gathered in the heavily shielded conference room, their faces showing the strain of 6 months of continuous defeats. "The human advance must be stopped," Kex declared, her usual arrogance replaced by desperation. "They've conquered 3 systems and show no signs of slowing. Our intelligence suggests they're building some kind of superweapon." General Thax of the Corvan Republic slammed his fist on the table. "My fleets are gone. 3 border worlds captured. These humans fight like demons." The Kresh Collective representative spoke in their unsettling, unified voice. "Analysis indicates human military doctrine superior to predicted parameters. Recommend immediate deployment of combined fleet assets." But several species were having second thoughts. The Bendari ambassador shifted nervously in his chair. "Perhaps we should consider negotiations. The humans have only attacked those who were involved in the assassination plot." Weakness, snarled the Corvan general. Show weakness to these savages and they'll devour us all. Unknown to the coalition, every word of their meeting was being recorded. Human intelligence operatives had infiltrated alien communications months ago, using technology borrowed from Earth's old internet warfare programs. Within hours, the coalition's plans reached human commanders throughout the galaxy. Admiral Kim, now commanding a fleet of 60 ships, smiled as he read the intercepts. "They're finally taking us seriously," he told Captain An. "Pity it's too late." The human war machine had evolved far beyond what the aliens could comprehend. While they debated and planned, humanity was already moving to the next phase of operations. On Luna, the first Solar Lance platform came online. Engineer Seo Da-eun watched as the massive orbital weapon charged its capacitors with energy drawn directly from the sun. The beam it could generate would be visible from neighboring star systems. "Target locked on the Corvan shipyard at Nexus Prime," reported the weapons operator. "Fire," ordered Admiral Jang from the command center. Light brighter than a small star erupted from the platform. The beam crossed 3 light-years in an instant, striking the Corvan facility with the concentrated fury of stellar fire. The shipyard, which had been building vessels for the coalition fleet, simply ceased to exist. The demonstration had its intended effect. Across the galaxy, alien governments watched in horror as humanity revealed weapons that defied their understanding of physics. The species they had dismissed as primitive had somehow learned to weaponize stars themselves. Captain Nam Hye-jin commanded one of humanity's converted cargo vessels, now prowling the space lanes between alien worlds. Her ship, the Revenge, looked like a harmless trader from the outside. Hidden in its cargo holds were weapons that could cripple a battleship. "Contact ahead," reported her sensor operator. "Velothi convoy, 12 ships including escorts." Nam smiled. "Time to collect some taxes. All hands to battle stations." The Velothi convoy never saw the attack coming. The harmless-looking cargo ship suddenly erupted with weapons fire, destroying the escort ships before they could react. The surviving vessels surrendered immediately, their holds full of war materials destined for the coalition fleet. "Take what we can use, destroy the rest," Nam ordered, "and make sure one ship escapes to report what happened." This was the new reality of galactic commerce. Human raiders struck anywhere, anytime, targeting alien supply lines with ruthless efficiency. Trade routes that had operated safely for centuries became hunting grounds for Earth's converted merchant fleet. The psychological effect was devastating. Alien crews began refusing dangerous assignments. Shipping companies demanded military escorts that the coalition couldn't spare. The galactic economy, built on the assumption of safe passage, began to collapse. In the depths of space, human construction crews worked to build something the aliens had never seen, a mobile fortress designed to project power across interstellar distances. The station would serve as a forward base for operations deep in alien territory. General O received regular reports on its construction. "How long until Battle Station 1 is operational?" he asked his engineering chief. "3 more months, sir. But when it's finished, we'll be able to support fleet operations 1,000 light-years from Earth." O nodded with satisfaction. The aliens thought they were fighting a defensive war, trying to contain human expansion. They didn't realize that humanity was building the infrastructure for a much larger conflict. On Earth, President Lee addressed the planet's population in a broadcast that reached every human settlement in the galaxy. "My fellow humans, we have learned the truth about our enemies. They never intended to accept us as equals. They planned our enslavement and destruction from the moment we reached for the stars. But they made one fatal error. They underestimated what humanity becomes when threatened." The response was immediate and overwhelming. Recruitment centers were flooded with volunteers. Industrial production increased by 300%. Every human settlement began contributing to the war effort. The galaxy had created its own worst nightmare. By threatening humanity's existence, they had united the species in a way nothing else could have. And now they were paying the price for that mistake. The aliens had wanted to keep humanity in its place. Instead, they had taught humanity that mercy was a luxury only the strong could afford, and humanity was rapidly becoming the strongest force in the galaxy. 2 years after President Han's assassination, the galaxy trembled under humanity's iron fist. Admiral Jang Hyo-seok stood on the bridge of the UES Never Again, flagship of Earth's newest dreadnought fleet. Around him, 5 more massive warships prepared for the assault on Velothi Prime, the heart of the alien empire that had helped orchestrate the murder of Earth's leader. Solar Lance platforms report ready to fire, announced Commander Kim Yeon-soo from the weapons station. All targets confirmed, military installations only. Jang nodded. Even in war, humans maintained their principles. Civilian populations were spared whenever possible, but military targets would be erased from existence. Begin bombardment, he ordered. From hidden positions throughout the system, humanity's orbital weapons platforms opened fire. Beams of concentrated stellar energy lanced through space, striking Velothi military installations with the fury of captured stars. Entire spaceports vanished in brilliant flashes of light. The proud Velothi fleet, caught at anchor, became expanding clouds of superheated gas. On the planet's surface, Velothi leaders watched their defenses crumble. Ambassador Kex, once so arrogant in her dismissal of human potential, cowered in her underground bunker as the world shook around her. "Impossible," she whispered. "They're using starfire as a weapon. How did these primitives learn to chain the fury of suns?" The answer came from her science advisor, his pale features even more ashen than usual. "Our intelligence was wrong about everything. The humans weren't primitive. They were patient. They've been developing these weapons for decades while we thought they were exploring peacefully." Above the planet, the human dreadnoughts moved into position. Each ship was a monument to human engineering. 2 kilometers of armored death bristling with weapons that could crack continents. Their names told the story of humanity's rage. UES Determination, UES Vengeance, UES Remember Han, UES No Mercy, UES Price of Murder. Commander Yoon Ji-hai watched the bombardment from the bridge of her stealth ship as her special forces prepared for insertion. The mission was precise. Capture the Velothi leadership alive for trial. The galaxy would see justice done properly. "Orbital defenses are down," reported her pilot. "We have clear insertion routes to the capital." Yoon's team of 90 soldiers represented the best of human military training. Each had volunteered knowing they might not return. But they also knew their actions would determine whether humanity's enemies would ever again dare to threaten Earth. The insertion went perfectly. Human dropships, invisible to Velothi sensors, landed in the capital city just as the orbital bombardment ended. The aliens had no time to recover before black armored figures were moving through their streets with deadly purpose. Meanwhile, in deep space, the Kresh Collective was learning what happened to species that provided aid to humanity's enemies. Their mistake had been supplying the Corvin Republic with ships and weapons after the war began. Captain Park Jae-won, formerly an intelligence officer, now commanded humanity's newest weapon, a cyber warfare vessel designed to attack the Collective's hive mind networks. The ship looked ordinary from the outside, but its computers carried viruses and intrusion programs that could paralyze an entire species. "Beginning network penetration," reported his chief programmer, Lee Min-ho. "Their security is impressive, but it's designed to keep individuals out, not coordinated attacks." The assault on the Kresh networks was unlike anything in galactic history. Human hackers, trained in centuries of internet warfare, tore through alien defenses like paper. The hive mind that had seemed invincible suddenly found itself blind and confused as core systems crashed across their empire. "Message incoming from the Collective," announced the communications officer. "They're requesting immediate cessation of hostilities." Park smiled coldly. "Tell them to withdraw all support from our enemies and pay reparations for their interference. Otherwise, we'll shut down their civilization permanently." The threat wasn't empty. Human cyber attacks had already crippled the Collective's ability to coordinate their massive population. Ships drifted helplessly in space, factory worlds ground to a halt. The species that had dominated the galaxy through unity suddenly found themselves scattered and powerless. On Earth, President Lee stood in the rebuilt Pentagon, watching status displays that showed the progress of Operation Reckoning. Red zones, marking enemy territory, grew smaller each day. Blue zones showing human control expanded steadily across the galactic map. "Sir, we're receiving surrender offers from 6 more species," reported General Yang. "The Altarians are offering complete submission if we spare their homeworld." Lee studied the tactical situation. 3 major alien powers had fallen. Dozens of smaller species had surrendered or switched sides. The coalition that had murdered President Han was collapsing. "What's the status of our hunt for the assassination conspirators?" he asked. Colonel Bei Minjung, President Han's daughter and now head of military intelligence, stepped forward. "We've identified 37 individuals directly involved in planning or executing the assassination. 23 are dead. 14 are in custody awaiting trial." Lee nodded with satisfaction. Justice would be served for every being that had participated in his friend's murder. But the war's most dramatic moment came when Admiral Kim's fleet reached the Corvan Republic's capital system. The species that had provided the actual assassin would face the full fury of human vengeance. General Thax, the Corvan leader who had so arrogantly dismissed humanity, watched human dreadnoughts emerge from hyperspace like harbingers of doom. His once mighty fleet had been reduced to a handful of battered ships hiding behind the planet's orbital defenses. "Open a channel," Kim ordered from the bridge of his flagship. Thax's scarred face appeared on the main screen, no longer showing the confidence of 2 years ago. "Admiral Kim, surely we can reach some accommodation. The assassination was the act of extremists. The Corvan Republic seeks peace." Kim's expression was stone. "General Thax, 2 years ago you said humans were savages pretending to be civilized. You said we didn't deserve a place at the galactic table. Today you're going to learn what real savages look like." The assault on Corvan Prime was methodical and devastating. Human ships moved through the defensive perimeter like predators among prey. Advanced shields that should have protected Corvan vessels proved useless against human weapons designed to penetrate any known defense. Captain An, now commanding his own dreadnought, targeted the massive fortress defending the planet's capital. The structure had withstood attacks for centuries, its armor thought impenetrable. "Fire," he ordered. The fortress's shields flared and died under the concentrated assault. Armor plating that could resist nuclear weapons crumpled like tissue paper. The symbol of Corvan military might become a tomb for its defenders, but humanity's ultimate message came from the solar lance platforms. As Corvan resistance crumbled, the orbital weapons charged for one final demonstration. The target was carefully chosen, a barren moon that served as a military training ground. The beam that struck the moon was visible from across the system. When the light faded, the moon was gone. Not destroyed, completely vaporized. Where a world had existed moments before, only empty space remained. The demonstration sent shockwaves through every alien government still resisting. If humans could erase moons, what hope did any world have against them? Surrender offers flooded in from across the galaxy. Species that had been enemies of Earth for 2 years suddenly begged for mercy. The Velothi Empire formally capitulated after their leadership was captured. The Corvan Republic ceased to exist as a political entity. But the most satisfying moment came when the survivors of the original conspiracy were brought to trial on Earth. The beings who had ordered President Han's death found themselves facing human justice. Lee watched from the gallery as the sentences were read. Each conspirator would spend the rest of their lives in human prisons, a living reminder of what happened to those who threatened Earth's leaders. "Is it over?" asked Park So-young, sitting beside him. Lee shook his head. "This phase is over. But the galaxy has learned an important lesson. You don't threaten humanity's leaders and expect to survive the consequences." Outside the courthouse, Admiral Kim addressed the assembled crowd and media from across the galaxy. "Let today mark the beginning of a new era. Humanity tried diplomacy and was answered with murder. We tried peace and received war. From this day forward, the galaxy will know that Earth's mercy has limits, but Earth's memory is eternal." The war that had begun with an assassination attempt to keep humanity in its place had ended with humanity firmly established as the galaxy's dominant power. The aliens had created their own nemesis through their arrogance and cruelty. Now they would live with the consequences of that mistake for generations to come. The age of human dominance had begun, written in the ashes of those who had dared to murder Earth's president. And the galaxy would never forget the price of underestimating humanity's capacity for both justice and vengeance.